Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francis. Today we shall be looking at some JAMB repeated topics in biology. Let's go straight away to the topic. We have living thing. Topic 1 is living organism. That is, what do we mean by living organism? Living organism has to do with any organism that has the basic units of a cell. We said anything that lives must have at least one cell. So when an organism has a cell, and what's a cell? A cell is the basic unit of life, meaning a cell is the origin of life. Before we can say anything is a living thing, it must possess at least one cell. We have other organisms that have more than one cell. They are referred to as multicellular organisms. We have what we call unicellular organism, unicellular. These are organisms that have just one cell. Then we have multicellular organism, cellular organisms that have more than one cell in them. So for a living thing, there are characteristic definition or terms that makes them living. Some of these characteristics are summed up in a code called Mr. Niger D, where N signifies nutrition, irritability, movement, respiration, in no particular order, digestion, reproduction, and etc. And finally, death. So these are few of the characteristics of living thing. For any organism to be called a living thing, it must be able to feed, that is nutrition. It's a process of taking in food. You know, food gives energy. Yes, the importance of food is to give energy to living things. So for any living organism to live or to thrive, it must feed. Irritability, this is the ability of an organism to be sensitive to its environment. That is, there is a need for an organism, a living thing, to feel the effect of the environment through sensory cells present in the cells of that organism. Now, number 3, we have movement. Any organism must be able to move from one place to the other. You will be amazed to see that plants also move. Yes, they may not move from their static position, but they can move their branches, they can move their leaves, they can bend their trunk. Then we have respiration. This is the exchange of gases between the external environment and the body of the organism. Then we have digestion. Of course, digestion is the breaking down of food molecules ingested in nutrition, during the process of nutrition, breaking them down in simpler form that gives energy to the body. We have another one called reproduction. Reproduction is simply a process whereby any living organism is able to give rise to young ones that resemble them. And finally, we have death. If there is a living organism, it must end up one day. This organism must die. These cells must die. So when they die, the cell activity ceases to exist. So these are characteristics of any living organism. What about non-living organisms? Non-living organisms don't exhibit this. If you have any organism that don't exhibit some of these characteristics, they are referred to as non-living. So if you have living, we must have non-living. So non-living things don't have this character. Example of non-living things are stones, rubber, any living thing that do not have cell. Now, having gone through characteristics of living things, let's look at the structure and function of some of these cell components. When we say cell, there are 2 types of cell. We have 1, animal cell, and 2, the plant cell. The plant cell is quite different from animal cell in that plant cells they are ovoid or circular in shape, in terms of shape, while plant cells are rigid with a particular rectangular shape. They are rectangular in shape. Then we have some of the components of this cell known as organelles. Organelles. Some of these components include what we call mitochondria. Mitochondria, there are so many, but we're going to give a few. What's the function of mitochondria? Mitochondria is the size of energy production. Living organisms, like I said, they need energy to carry out some of these biological processes. So this energy are produced in an organelle called mitochondria, and it is referred to as the powerhouse of any living thing. Powerhouse in the sense that they produce what we call, they synthesize what we call ATP, which is the source of energy. ATP is referred to as adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate, that's number one. Number two, we have what we call lysosome. Lysosome is another organelle responsible for digestion of food. When living things take in food, there's a need for them to be processed, to be digested, to be broken down. So that organelle or that cell that is responsible for the breaking down of this process is referred to as lysosome. Another organelle we can remember is ribosome. Ribosome is an organelle responsible for protein synthesis. Protein is needed by living organisms so as to carry out some of these body functions. So the organelle that produces this is referred to as ribosome. We have what we call chloroplast. Chloroplast is an organelle present in plant cell. They are responsible for photosynthesis. They give the plant the green coloration so that this organism can produce their own food through a process known as photosynthesis. We have several other organelles. We have what's called cell membrane. Or in actual fact, we have the cell wall. Cell membrane is present in animals. These are medium that form a barrier between the external and the internal structure of an organism. These are avenue where material are exchanged through the process of photosynthesis, through the process of diffusion and osmosis. That is the exchange of material molecules from the external body to the internal organ. So cell membrane is present in both plants and animals. Why cell wall is present only in plants. So these are few organelles present in these plants and animals. Let's look at some of the let's look at what we call organization of life. Having talked about cell, so let's clean up. So let's look at what we call organization of life. Organization. All right. These are stages of cells where life builds up. Life begins with what we call the cell. The cell starts organization of life. Life begins with one cell. We say cell is the basic unit, that is the starting point of life. Then we have many cells coming together to give a particular function, gives you what we call the tissue. This is the second stage. Then when we have many tissues coming together to give a particular function, also we have what we call organ. Then when organs come together for a particular function, we have what we call systems. So we can give the example. Example is amoeba. It's a unicellular cell. Then we have tissue. Blood is an example of tissue. That's in animal. We can have, yes, tissue. Then we can have bone. It's another tissue. How about in plants? We can have the root system. No? Sorry. Blood. Blood. Bone. That's in animal. Then we have what we call the phloem. And xylem tissue. These are in plants. Now we have organ. Example of organ is the ear, the eye, skin, etc. Then we have in system, we can have what's called, in animal, we can have what's called the circulatory system, digestive system. Then in plants, we have what's called the root system, and shoot system. So let's take some of repeated questions, common question in JAMB. All right. Some likely questions on these topics are: what is the basic unit of life? Like we mentioned, we have some options. Number 1, tissue. B, organ. C, cell. D, organism. The correct answer is cell. Cell is the basic unit of life. That's the starting point where life begins. Number 2, which of the following is a characteristic of living organism? We have a number of characteristics up there. We have growth, movement, reproduction, all of the above. You will discover all of these were mentioned in our explanation. So the correct answer is all of the above. Number 3, what is the correct order of organization of living things? We said organization of life starts from cell, tissue, like you can see, organ and system. Let's see, A, cell, organ, tissue, system. Not in this order. Cell, tissue, organ, system. Organ, tissue, cell, system. Tissue, cell, organ. The correct answer is cell, tissue, organ, and system. B. All right. So let's look at the second topic for today. It says structural and functional behavioral adaptation of organisms. By the way, what do you mean by adaptation? Adaptation are features that enables an organism to live successfully in an environment. An organism possesses some features that make them to live without having any challenge or any problem in that environment. So some of these adaptive features, they can be physical, that is structural. They are things that are built with their body so as to enable them to live successfully in the environment. We have what's called adaptive coloration. Some organisms are made with certain colors that make them to fit in the environment. Take for instance camouflage. Some organisms such as trying to remember the name now, that has these features of blending with the environment. It can prevent predators from being attacked by predators as it blends its color with the environment. So they show some of this color that enable them to not easily be identified by predators in the environment. Now we have what's called behavioral adaptation in social animals. Social animals include bees, ants, and termites. So they behave in such a way that it enables them. Take for instance termites. Termites they are divided into 3 cases, that is classes. We have the workers, we have the soldiers, and then we have the queen. All of them have division of labor, which enable them to survive.
Get the cheapest science materials from allschoollabs.com.
We have the queen. All of them have division of labor, which enable them to survive in the environment. Then we have structural adaptation, like we said. We have some organisms that are built with specific features, such as beak in birds. Beak is adapted for picking up their food. We have some other organisms like tortoise. We have some organisms that have features like web on their feet that enable them to be able to swim in an aquatic environment. Other example are lizard. Lizard have claws that enable them to grip, to hold fast on the wall, making them easily to climb on trees and on the wall. Then we have eagles. Eagles have special eye that enable them to see far, and they have claws that enable them to tear and hold onto their prey. They also have sharp, teeth, that enable them to tear some of these food for them to survive. Now let's look at some common questions on this topic. What is the largest level of organization in living things? We have the ecosystem, we have the community, C, population, biosphere, there's an error there. Biosphere. Biosphere is a community where living thing exists. The living thing has the largest organization in an environment, in any organization. So the correct answer is biosphere. Bio means like where all life activities, both aquatic, terrestrial, organisms thrive. So the correct answer is biosphere. What is an example of structural adaptation? We said structural adaptations are features that are built with the body of an organism to make them to survive in an environment. Number 1, migration. That is the movement of an organism from one region to the other. Hibernation. Hibernation as in polar bear. Polar bear, they can hibernate. When the temperature is cool, they try to hide. They try to build fur. They try to, conserve their energy by hibernating, by remaining inactive for some time. Then we have camouflage. Camouflage, there, like we said, there are some organisms that blend their environment. Example of camouflage are toad. Toad can change their color so as they can blend with the color of the grass. At times they can be greenish in color, they can be brownish, depending on the environment, so as to hide from being noticed. Then we have echolocation. So the correct answer for a structural adaptation is camouflage. They have some structure that enable them to change their color. Number 3, which of the following is a functional adaptation? Adaptation that is functional. Sharp teeth in carnivores. We have carnivores having the sharp teeth to be able to tear their prey. Is it a functional adaptation? No. These are structural adaptation. Production of venom in snakes. Venom are produced, in snakes so as to attack or prevent them from being, to fight external aggression, And then C, migration of birds. D, web building in spider. The correct answer is production of venom in snakes. These are functional adaptation in an organism. Now we have internal structure of plants and animals. When we say internal structure, we mean what are those material that makes an organism to be able to live successfully. We have in plants and animals. Living things are divided into 2. So when we are talking about some of this structure, we talk about plants and then in animals. So in plant, for instance, some of these structures are root system, the stem, and the leaf. The internal structure in this organism starts, let's start with the roots. The roots function for, the function of the roots in plant is number one, to provide water for the organism. The roots is built with what we call the root hair, which enable water from the soil to rise up through the process of transpiration in a tissue called the xylem. The xylem tissue helps to conduct water from the root hair into the body of the plant. And apart from that, the root helps the plant to hold firmly on the ground so that the plant can withstand any pressure from the external environment. Then we have the leaf. Before the leaf, let's talk about the stem. The stem is the midpoint between the roots and the leaf. The stem is always greenish in color. Sorry, the diagram is supposed to follow in that order. So we have the leaf, the stem, and the roots. You see, the stem is made up of the branches that are usually greenish in color. The green color enables the plant to carry out photosynthesis. So we have them, if you look at it through a microscope, this is what you see. These are the internal organs present in the stem. We have what we call the phloem. So we are looking at internal structure of a flowering plant. We said some of these plants have some structures that are divided into the root system, the stem, and then the leaf. What are the functions of this? The root system enables the plant to be able to absorb water through the root hair in a tissue called the xylem for normal body activities. Then we have the stem. The stem is usually made up of color, greenish colors that carry out photosynthesis. And some of the internal structure of this stem are called cambium, xylem, and then phloem. What are the functions? The function of the cambium is to give support to the plant. The xylem enables the plant to take out water through osmosis and diffusion into the body of the plant. Then the phloem enables the plant to bring down the digested food produced during photosynthesis from the leaf down to the body of the plant. Then we have the leaf. The leaf is usually the surface where photosynthesis takes place. We say photosynthesis is the production of food material through the combination of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and the presence of chlorophyll to produce what we call starch in the body of the plant. This serves as the energy for the organism. Let's look at animals. That is plants. For animals, we have some structural or internal structure, such as the skeletal system. Of course, the skeletal system is made up of bones, which gives support or rigidity to the living organism. We have some internal structure, such as respiratory system, digestive system. We have hormones. We have what we call hormones and some material that are needed for normal functioning of the body. Some of these things are, let's enumerate this. So we have hormones, skeletal system, digestive system, respiratory system. All these are found in the body, the internal structure of mammals. Let's pick some likely question in this topic. What is the main function of the xylem in plants? What is the main function of the xylem in plant? If you listen to our explanation, we said the xylem helps to what? To transport food? No. B, to transport water. Yes. The main function of the xylem tissue in the stem is to conduct water to the body of the plant. To produce hormone, no way. To regulate temperature, no. The correct answer is B, to transport water. Which part, number 2 question, which part of the leaf is responsible for photosynthesis? The part of the leaf that is responsible for photosynthesis. A, epidermis. B, mesophyll. C, veins. D, stomata. The correct answer is B, mesophyll. Mesophyll is that surface of the leaf that is responsible for photosynthesis. Number 3 question. What is the function of the cambium in plant stem? The function of the cambium in the plant cell. A, to produce food, to transport water, to produce new cell, to regulate growth, to produce new cell. Correct answer is C, to produce new cell, which gives it support, rigidity. So let's move on. We have respiration. Respiration simply means the exchange of gas from the external environment and the body of an organism. When we say organism, we refer to as both plant and animal respire because they are living things. So let's talk about respiration in animal. Animal able to take in oxygen and take out carbon dioxide through a process of inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation means the ability of an organism to take in gas, and the usual gas taken in by oxygen is, taken in by organism is oxygen. The mechanism of this exchange of gas is there is an internal organ called intercostal muscle which hold the rib in place. We have other tissue called the diaphragm, which separates between the upper abdominal region and the lower abdominal region. Then we have what we call the rib cage. Then we have what we call the alveolar. The air comes in through the windpipe or the bronchioles, and divide into the bronchioles. The air expands the what? Increases the volume. When you take in this air, it increases the volume of the alveolar, thereby causing the intercostal muscle to be raised, making the diaphragm to be flattened, thereby increasing the pressure in the chest region. At the same time, exhalation means the breathing out of gas, and this gas is known as carbon dioxide. In this process, the mechanism of that is that the rib cage relaxes because the intercostal muscle relaxes, thereby making the diaphragm to be what? To be curved, reducing the pressure of the air in the chest region. Now, plants also carry out what's called respiration. Respiration in plant takes place in 2 phases, the dark stage and the light stage in the process of photosynthesis. So respiration in plants enable plants to take in carbon dioxide, which is used for manufacturing starch in a process called photosynthesis. While at the same time, carbon dioxide is being taken in, oxygen is exhaled as a waste product, which is given out in the environment for animals. So the entire process is a circle. Plant gives out oxygen for animals to breathe, while animals exhale carbon dioxide for plants to manufacture its food. Let's say some likely question. Okay, like we said, we have some of this diagram that represent the respiratory organ or system in a mammal. We have the air coming from the trachea or the windpipe as it enters through the bronchioles. The bronchioles divide into smaller portions in the lung. As the air comes in, this is the intercostal muscle. It contracts, thereby making the diaphragm to become flattened. Exactly. Making air to fill in this region. At the same time, when air pushes out, the carbon dioxide released out, the intercostal muscle becomes what? Flattened, making the intercostal muscle to relax, pushing the air out through the trachea. So this is a respiratory system in a mammal. Let's take some likely question. What is the primary respiratory organ in humans? In human, we have A, lungs, B, skin, C, trachea, and D, diaphragm. The special or primary organ responsible for respiration in human is the lung. The correct answer is A, lung. Number 2, which part of the plant is responsible for gaseous exchange? The part of the plant that is responsible for gaseous exchange, A, the roots. The root is found beneath the soil, so it does not carry out respiration. The stem does not carry out respiration. The leaves are made up of gas cells that control the stomata, which is a region where gaseous exchange takes place. Then we have flower. The flower is responsible for reproduction in plants. So the correct answer is C. C is responsible for gaseous exchange. Let's take another question. Number 3, what is the process by which plants exchange gases? The process of gaseous exchange is A, respiration, B, photosynthesis, C, transpiration, and D, diffusion. The correct answer is respiration. Photosynthesis is a process whereby plants manufacture their food. Transpiration is a process whereby plants releases water into the atmosphere, while diffusion is a process of movements of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. All right. Let's look at growth. What is the meaning of growth? And what is the meaning of germination and condition necessary for growth? Simply defined as the increase in size. It's a morphological development in organism that brings about increase in size. So growth is as a result of cell division. We have what we call meiosis and mitosis. There are what we call division of cells, which bring about elongation and expansion. We have cell. If this is a particular cell divide and increase. You see, these are two cells that divide into two. This one increases. This one increases. This one divide, increases and divide, increase until you discover that the organism begins to increase in size. For instance, a child that is born after 2 months, 3 months, they begin to increase in size as a result of cell division. Cell division brings about growth. Now, that is in animal. How about in plants? Plants carry out what we call cell division in 2 regions. If this is your plant, there are 2 areas of the plant. We have the roots and the shoot system. The tip of the roots and the tip of the shoot are made up of enzyme called auxin. They are glands called auxin. Auxins are glands responsible for growth in plants. So this auxin enable we call it meristematic cell division. Meaning at this point, you see cells are able to divide and increase rapidly. The rate at which cell increases at this tip, and this tip is more. That is why you discover that plants grow more on the tip of the roots and on the shoots. So let's talk about germination of seed. Germination of seed has to do, we have 2 types of germination. We have what we call epigeal and hypogeal germination. Seed germination is brought about by you burying a seed in a soil in a favorable condition, enable the seed to grow the first thing that happens is that this is a seed. In a suitable condition, the seed begins to develop. It brings out the first leaf called the radicle, and this is the second.
Run quick tests and analysis. Visit analysis.africa.
And this is the second. This is called plumo. This is called the radicle. In a favorable condition under the soil. So the radicle formed the root system, while the plumo formed what's called the shoot system. Shoot system. The root system. So in a favorable condition, the first thing that comes out is the radicle, which forms the roots, and then we have what's called the plume. So germination is in two types, epigia and hypogia. Epigia germination is a process whereby we have the cotyledons are formed outside, Epigia, types of germination, epigia and hypogia. In epigia germination, the cotyledons are formed outside the soil. These ones are formed beneath the soil. What do I mean? In epigia germination, when you bury or plant a seed in the soil, you see the cotyledon will be lifted on top. The seed will come up on the soil. We call this epigia. An example is your bean, e.g. bean. When you plant a bean, cowpea, melon, in fact, cashew, these are dicotyledonous plants. Dicotyledonous because they have two seed leaves. They will be found on the surface of the soil. They are called epigia. Then we have another one called hypogia. Hypogia germination, you have the seed retained beneath the plant, beneath the soil. Example of that is maize. Example of this is maize, millet, etc. So in these two types of germination, conditions make the seed to germinate. Some of these conditions that enable this organism to germinate are air. There must be presence of air in the soil, that is aeration. A well-aerated soil will enhance germination. Then there must be presence of what we call embryo, that is food reserve in the seed. The seed must have embryo, that is there are some energy reserve that will be able to feed this organism until the shoot and the root system are developed. Another condition is the seed must be viable, that is, it must be alive. Dead seed don't grow. The other condition is temperature. Suitable temperature enables the seed to live, to germinate. Why high temperature, or when the temperature becomes too high or too low, the seed will not survive. So let's take some few questions on this topic. All right. What is growth in living organism? Growth means permanent increase in size. Is that correct? Temporary increase in size. C, increase in number of cells only. Then D, decrease in size. The correct answer is A, permanent increase. Growth always, happen when a cell increases. I told you it elongates during cell division and increases. It divides and increases in size. So the correct answer is A, permanent increase in size. Number 2. Which condition is not necessary for seed germination? A, water. Of course, water is necessary for seed to germinate. Oxygen must be present. C, high temperature only. B, suitable temperature. Which condition is not? The only condition that is not is high temperature. We said when the temperature is too high, the organism will not grow. But when the temperature is moderate or suitable, of course, you will experience what we call germination. So there is a particular temperature where an organism will survive. We call that suitable temperature. The next question says, what happened during seed germination? Before seed germinate, what happened? Seed dries up. The seed dries up. If a seed dries up, will it germinate? B, seed remain dormant. The seed remain dormant. When the seed remain dormant, of course, no biological activities taking place. Radicle emerge first. Then D, plumule emerge first. The correct answer is the radicle. Until the radicle emerge first, which form the root. The root system has to be developed first before the shoot system. So the correct answer is C, radicle emerge first. Alright. The next question says reproduction. What is reproduction? And reproduction can be classified into two segments. We have sexual and asexual reproduction. So reproduction is simply the ability of a living organism to give rise to young ones that resembles them. For instance, a lizard will always give birth to a lizard. Though smaller in size, but it looks exactly like the parent. So we have two types of reproduction, asexual and asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction requires only one parent. A single parent, you are amazed that a single parent can give rise to a young one. Yes, as in the case of some organisms, like we can have plants. Okay, some plants can carry out some vegetative reproduction where they only have a single organism, a single parent giving out rise to young ones. For instance, we have vegetative propagation of plants such as stem cutting. Stem cutting in plants. Just a single stem. If you cut it and bury like cassava, e.g. cassava, does not require two parents coming together. Then we have another in animal. We can have earthworm. Earthworm can easily carry out what we call fragmentation. In fragmentation, a particular earthworm can be cut into different parts. And we discover that each part will form a particular mature and full-blown earthworm. So here we can have about 4 earthworms from a fragment of a particular parent. Just a single earthworm gives rise to 1, 2, 3, 4 earthworms as a result of fragmentation. So in asexual reproduction, only a single parent is required. In contrast with sexual reproduction, where we have two parents, it's a more complex form of reproduction because two parents, the male and the female, comes together through what we call gametes, combination of their gametes. We have what's called the male gamete, the male and the female gamete. Come together to form what we call zygotes. In a process known as fertilization. Let's kill them so that we can. Okay, we said sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is made up of male and female. Coming together. We have male cell and the female sex cell. This is in the case of animal, we have sperm. In the case of this, we have what's called ovum. When they come together, they form zygotes in a process known as fertilization. You know, and the end result, you have what we call an embryo. You know, so the process requires two different individuals, that is male and female. They come together, you know, to form what's called a zygote. From there, the zygote develops into what we call an embryo, which is the genesis of the offspring. Now, we have some likely questions on this topic. Okay, let's look at the structure of the reproductive organ in plants. The flower is the organ where reproduction actually takes place in the plant, and the parts of the flower are in us like this. We have the flower is made up of 4 floral parts, that is 4 holes. We have the first one is the petal. The petal is otherwise known as corolla. That is the brightly colored part of the plant that attracts insects. You know, insects aid reproduction because they are agents of reproduction. Why are they agents? They were attracted by this, thereby feeding on the nectar. You know, nectar is the sweet tissue, you know, produced by this flower. While feeding on this, they tend to rub their body on the stamen, you know, making this to touch on this. We call that process insect pollination. That is, insect is able to carry out pollen grains. You know, the pollen grains is the male sex cell in plants. You know, while the ovum is located here is the female sex cell. Like I said, in male, in plants, we have pollen grains. That's for the male. Then ovum for the female. That's in plants. So what happened is this stamen has what you call the pollen grain inside it. So as the insect, you know, is trying to feed on this tissue, they thereby rub their body, carry some of this material on this, thereby fertilizing the plants. So as a result, there will be what's called a pollen tube that forms, you know, will come down here, you know, until seeds are formed. Then we have another thing here called the pistil. The pistil is the female structure where fertilization takes place. Now, the pistil is made up of the following. The stigma, where I told you is a sweet smelling structure here. Then the style connects this and this. Now, the entire surface here is where fertilization takes place. And after fertilization, you discover that embryo will be formed. From here, the seed will be formed. After the seed, then the fruits will eventually form. So the flower is a structure where reproduction actually takes place in plants. All right, let's look at some. What is the main advantage of reproduction? Why reproduction? What is the main advantage in reproduction? Reproduction increases genetic variation. Reproduction produces offspring quickly. It requires 2 parents. It involves gametes. Something is missing, I believe. Okay. All right. What is the main advantage of asexual reproduction? Okay, like you can see, asexual reproduction. Asexual. We said asexual reproduction requires only 1 parent. Number 1, it increases genetic variation. Asexual reproduction does not require genetic variation because only 1 parent is involved. So there will be no variation. Reproduction produces offspring quickly. It requires 2 parents. Asexual does not require 2 parents, so it's out of it. It involves gametes. Asexual does not involve gametes. So the correct answer is asexual reproduction produces offspring quickly. What is the term for the transfer of pollen from anther to the stigma in flowering plants? The correct and the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma is A. Fertilization, B. Pollination, C. Germination, and D. Seedling. The correct answer is pollination. Pollination is simply the transfer of pollen grain from the anther, which is the male, to the stigma, which is the female. Which part of the flower contains the ovule? The ovule, like we described, is the female part of a flower that is responsible for reproduction. A. The petal. We say the petal is otherwise known as the corolla, which is the brightly colored part of the flower. The sepal is the greenish part where photosynthesis takes place, while the stamen is the male part where pollen grains are produced. The ovary, of course, houses the ovule, which is the female sex cell in the flower. So the correct answer is D. Alright. So with this, we have come to the end of today's class.
Hi, I'm sure you enjoyed the content you just watched. To see more episodes as that, preparing you for your oncoming exams, smash the subscribe button on this channel right now and visit the playlist that we've made for you, covering over 50 types of different exams.